The training yard of the Zorith Legion base was always loud, but today it felt louder than usual. A group of young alien soldiers stood together near the edge of the field, their armor half-latched and their helmets hanging from their belts. They were supposed to be preparing for their first mission near the Sol system, but instead they were busy laughing at something one of them was showing on a small tablet. The screen displayed old, human myth stories of warriors fighting giant serpents, heroes lifting impossible weights, beings calling lightning from the sky. One story talked about ancient protectors who walked alone into battle and came back carrying peace instead of weapons. Another showed drawings of creatures humans believed had once lived among them. To the young soldiers, these stories looked childish, exaggerated, and emotional. One soldier pointed at an old drawing of a human figure standing on a mountain with the sky breaking open behind him. "Look at this," he said, barely holding back his laughter. They actually believed this happened. Humans think their ancestors could call storms. Imagine that. A species that still struggles to build decent star engines believes someone could move clouds with his hands. Another soldier shook his head and joked, "If this is the kind of imagination they have, no wonder they panic during small meteor showers." They live on a dangerous world and still spend time making up stories instead of preparing for real threats. A third soldier, taller and louder than the rest, added confidently, "Human myths exist because they're scared. Weak species invent heroes to feel protected. Strong species don't need make-believe warriors. We know how to fight without stories." Their laughter grew louder as they scrolled through more of the files. The tablet played short clips of humans reenacting their own legends, old rituals, festivals, dances, costumes from ancient times. Some of the alien soldiers imitated the movements, pretending to swing fake swords or shout into the sky the way the humans in the videos did. They laughed until their sides hurt. Nearby, their instructor watched them with mild annoyance, but he didn't interfere. He had seen young soldiers behave like this before. Most recruits mocked humans at first. After all, humans were seen as unpredictable, emotional creatures who often acted before thinking. Their history was messy, and their stories were filled with dramatic twists. To new recruits, it all seemed ridiculous. But what the instructor noticed most was the quiet figure standing a little apart from the group. Commander Ralvik was older than all of them. He stood with his arms crossed, his armor polished but unadorned, as if decoration meant nothing to him. His expression was unreadable, but anyone who had served with him knew he was never silent without a reason. He had survived more missions than the entire squad combined, including several missions on Earth itself. His name carried weight in the Legion, though he never enjoyed that attention. He watched the laughing recruits calmly, but there was something in his eyes, a faint tension, a memory he kept locked away. One of the younger soldiers finally noticed him. Wanting to show off, the soldier called out loudly, "Commander, what do you think about these human stories? Don't you find them ridiculous too?" The rest of the group turned, eager to hear from the veteran. They expected him to join the laughter, maybe even share a story of how humans exaggerated everything. They waited for him to smile or make some casual remark, but he didn't. Ralvik simply continued watching them with the same serious expression. He said nothing. The laughter slowly faded as the silence stretched on. The recruits exchanged confused looks. This wasn't the reaction they expected from someone who had seen more of the galaxy than most people could dream of. One of the braver recruits stepped forward, trying to lighten the mood. "Come on, Commander. Surely you don't believe any of this nonsense. Humans just like pretending they're stronger than they really are." Ralvik blinked once, slowly. His voice, when he finally spoke, was calm but heavy. "Strength does not always look the way you expect it to." The soldiers frowned, unsure what he meant. One of them whispered to another, Why does he look like he's seen a ghost? The instructor's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew something was coming, but he stayed silent. Ralvik rarely spoke without purpose. The tall recruit, the one who had been mocking humans, the loudest stepped forward with a confident grin. "Commander, you've actually been to Earth, right? You must have seen how these people exaggerate everything. These myths prove they are emotional and scared. A strong species doesn't hide behind legends." Ralvik's jaw tightened. His eyes shifted to the tablet, still displaying human drawings. "You think myths make them weak?" he asked. "Of course," the tall recruit replied quickly. "Myths are what small minds create to feel powerful. No real warrior needs a story to stand tall." The other recruits nodded eagerly, encouraged by his boldness. They expected the commander to agree. Instead, Ralvik spoke in a low voice, almost too quiet for the wind-swept yard. "Humans do not use myths to feel powerful. They use myths to understand themselves." The group fell completely silent. The tall recruit frowned. "What does that even mean?" "Commander, we are soldiers. We don't analyze stories." Ralvik stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate. "You laugh at their legends because you see drawings and words. But humans see something else. Their stories are the memory of what they survived. Their myths are lessons disguised as fantasies. You mistake them for weakness because you do not understand the world that shaped them." The recruits exchanged nervous glances. Some of them shifted their weight, suddenly unsure whether they had crossed a line. The tall soldier forced a laugh to break the tension. "Commander, no offense, but you're talking like these stories are real. These humans think ancient warriors fought monsters. No one could survive creatures that size. And their so-called heroes with strange powers? Impossible. You know that." Ralvik lifted his head slightly. His eyes were sharp now, as if looking through the soldier rather than at him. "You say impossible," he replied. "But I have seen something that made me question that word." A soft rustling of armor filled the air as the recruits straightened. No one dared laugh now. The instructor looked down, pretending to adjust his gloves, but even he was listening closely. One of the younger soldiers spoke hesitantly. "Commander, what did you see?" Ralvik didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the sky above them, the wide expanse of blue stretching endlessly toward the stars. His voice, when he spoke again, carried a distant weight, as if he was remembering something he wished he could forget. "There was a mission," he said slowly, "long before any of you joined the Legion. We were sent to Earth. It was meant to be simple. A quiet reconnaissance trip in a mountain region. No combat, no danger." His eyes darkened, but things did not go as planned. The recruits leaned forward without realizing it. The laughter from earlier felt like something from a completely different day. Ralvik continued. "During that mission, my squad found something that should not have existed. Something old, something powerful, something human." The tall recruit swallowed hard. "What do you mean, powerful? Humans don't have special abilities." Ralvik looked at him, and this time the soldier stepped back involuntarily. "You believe that because you have only seen humans in controlled environments. But Earth is not a controlled environment. It is a world that shapes its people in ways you cannot imagine." The soldier's throat tightened. He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. Ralvik's voice grew quieter, yet every syllable felt heavy. "Human myths do not survive because they are pretty stories. They survive because something inside those stories meant something real to someone. I have learned to respect that." One of the recruits asked softly, "Are you saying something from their legends is real?" Ralvik didn't blink. "I'm saying I saw something that made me stop laughing forever." The wind blew across the training yard. The young soldiers felt goosebumps crawl across their skin. The tablet in the tall recruit's hand suddenly felt heavier, as if the smiling, human drawings on the screen were no longer funny. Another recruit finally whispered, "Commander, what exactly did you see?" Ralvik looked at each of them slowly, meeting their eyes one by one. The shadows beneath his gaze seemed deeper than before. "I will tell you," he said. "But when you hear it, understand these humans are not to be underestimated. Their world forged them with fire, storms, and struggle. And sometimes, the things they remember as stories come from something far older than any of us." Every soldier stood still. Not one of them laughed out, and for the first time that day, they understood that the universe might hold truths far stranger than the old. Drawings on a human screen. The briefing room of the Zorith Legion ship always felt colder than the rest of the vessel. The metal walls were clean and bright, and the long table in the center reflected the overhead lights like a mirror. Every sound echoed a little too sharply inside that room, as if the ship wanted to make sure no one ever forgot there were soldiers first and everything else second. The young recruits entered the room, still thinking about Commander Ralvik's strange words from earlier. Their curiosity was stronger than their fear now, and some of them whispered to each other in quiet tones. They tried not to look nervous, but the memory of Ralvik's serious expression had stayed with them. It was the kind of look that made jokes feel small. The instructor stood at the front, preparing the holoscreen for the day's mission summary. The mission was supposed to be simple travel near the Sol system, scan the area, and report any human activity. Nothing more. For most young soldiers, it was the kind of assignment that felt like a warm-up, not a real deployment. But today, no one was relaxed. When Ralvik entered the room, he didn't speak. He moved with the calm confidence of someone who had studied the universe long enough to respect its quiet dangers. The recruits watched him closely, but he seemed lost in thought. As if replaying something in his mind that refused to fade, the instructor activated the holoscreen. A rotating image of Earth appeared, blue and green, glowing softly in the darkness. Even through a hologram, the planet looked alive, filled with storms, oceans, forests, and motion. The tall recruit from earlier broke the silence first. He pointed at the image and joked, "Well, at least their world looks peaceful from far away. Maybe their myths come from staring at sunsets too long." A few of the younger soldiers laughed quietly, but their laughter was unsure, almost forced. Ralvik finally looked up. "Peaceful," he repeated slowly. "Is that what you think when you see that world?" The tall recruit shrugged. "It looks calm." Ralvik shook his head once. "You are looking with the eyes of someone who has never stood on its soil." The room grew quiet again. One of the recruits leaned forward and asked timidly, "Commander, why do you sound like Earth is? Dangerous?" Ralvik didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked closer to the holoscreen and studied the planet for a long moment. His eyes softened, as if remembering something that felt distant but powerful. "Dangerous," he said finally. "Yes, but not in the way you imagine. Earth is not dangerous because it wants to be. It is dangerous because it is alive. Everything on that world fights to survive. Everything adapts. Everything changes. When you spend enough time on Earth, you realize the people living there are shaped by the same forces." The tall recruit crossed his arms. "But humans aren't that strong. Their bodies break easily. Their technology is behind ours. Their history is a mess. What could they possibly do that the Zorith Legion should worry about?" Ralvik turned his head slightly, just enough to look at him. Strength is not always measured by the sharpness of claws or the power of machines. The tall recruit opened his mouth to argue, but Ralvik continued speaking before he could say a word. "Humans have something many species fear without admitting it. They have a way of rising every time they fall. Their past is filled with mistakes and losses, yes, but also with survival. Stories help them remember that survival. Stories remind them who they want to become. The room fell silent. The other recruits glanced at each other, unsure whether to be impressed or confused. Some of them felt a small shiver, the kind that appears when a truth is too large to fully understand. One of the youngest recruits asked shyly, "Commander, earlier you said you saw something on Earth, something that made you respect their myths. What happened?" Ralvik didn't respond right away. He walked slowly toward the table and placed both hands on its surface. His fingers tightened just a little, as if steadying himself. The lights cast a dim glow across his face, highlighting the small scars along his cheek scars he rarely spoke about. "I wasn't always like this," he finally said. "When I first trained, I was no different from you. I laughed at humans. I thought their stories were foolish, their emotions strange, their art pointless. But that changed during a reconnaissance mission, years before any of you joined the Legion." The recruits leaned forward, eager to hear more. Even the instructor remained still. Ralvik continued. "Our squad landed on Earth with a simple objective: investigate unusual energy signals in a remote mountain region. We expected human technology, maybe a hidden base or old equipment. We never expected anything beyond that." He paused, and for a moment the room felt colder. We arrived near sunset. The air was thick with mist. The mountains were sharp and endless. The air smelled of soil and rain. We walked for hours, climbing rocks and crossing narrow paths. I remember thinking the world felt heavy, as if every step carried a story older than my entire species. One recruit whispered, "That sounds dramatic." Ralvik gave him a calm look. I would not waste words if the experience was small. The recruit lowered his head, embarrassed. Ralvik went on. "When the storm came, we had no choice but to take shelter inside a cavern. And that is where the mission changed." The room grew so quiet that even the soft hum of the ship became noticeable. Ralvik's voice softened. "Inside the cavern we found marking symbols humans had carved long before they could even build. Proper tools, drawings of warriors, yes, but also drawings of something else, something standing beside them, something that looked almost like light wearing a shape." The tall recruit laughed nervously. "Like a spirit?" Ralvik didn't. "Smile. Call it whatever you want. All I know is that the drawings didn't feel like art. They felt like memory." The recruits shivered. One of them muttered, "But Commander, humans don't have beings like that. Their myths are just imagination." Ralvik closed his eyes for a moment, as if weighing the next words carefully. "You think that," he said, "because you have only read their stories. But I saw something with my own eyes." The tall recruit leaned forward, unable to hide his curiosity. "What did you see?" Ralvik opened his eyes again. They were steady, focused, and colder than before. "A person," he said. "A human." The room relaxed slightly. The tall recruit exhaled. "Well, humans aren't that scary." Ralvik raised a hand, stopping him. "You didn't let me finish." This human was not like the others I had seen. No armor, no weapons. Just a simple wooden staff. Yet when he stepped into the cavern, every part of the air around us changed. The recruits looked at one another, unsure whether this was the beginning of a warning or a story. Ralvik continued. "My squad raised our weapons, but he didn't move. He didn't speak. He only walked closer. Then the light in the cavern shifted, bending around him like mist. Before we could fire, a pulse of energy burst from the staff and shut down every piece of equipment we had." One recruit gasped. Another whispered, "But humans can't do that, right?" Ralvik stared into the hollow screen. "That is what we believed. But belief cannot erase what happened. The tall recruit stood up, startled. "Commander, are you telling us a human used some kind of power on you?" Ralvik didn't flinch. "Yes." The room froze. The recruit stared at him as if he had spoken in a new language. The instructor finally stepped forward. "Commander, perhaps you should explain the context." Ralvik cut him off gently. "There is no context that makes it easier to understand. There is only the truth." The instructor fell silent. Ralvik looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. "You asked why I do not laugh at human myths," he said quietly. "This is why. Something I saw on that mission made me understand one thing. Humans are full of surprises. Their stories come from somewhere. Maybe not all of them are real. Maybe most are not. But some hide truths deeper than we can measure." The tall recruit slowly sat back down. His confidence had cracked. Another recruit whispered, "Commander, were you scared?" Ralvik didn't hesitate. "Yes, not because I feared the human would hurt us, but because I realized how little we understood about them. It is dangerous to underestimate a species you do not fully know." No one responded. The silence in the room was heavy, thoughtful, and uncomfortable. Ralvik stepped back from the table. "When you go near Earth," he said, "remember this. Humans are not defined by the simplicity of their bodies or the chaos of their history. They are defined by their will to stand up again and again, even when everything around them breaks." He turned and walked toward the exit. Right before leaving the room, he paused. "You may laugh at their myths today," he said softly, "but one day you may find yourselves wishing those myths were only stories." The door closed behind him. Not a single recruit spoke, and the holoscreen continued spinning gently, Earth glowing like a secret waiting to be discovered. The air inside the ship felt tense the next morning. The young recruits had barely slept. Some of them had stayed awake, whispering about Commander Ralvik's words, trying to make sense of what he claimed to have seen on Earth. Others stared at the ceiling of their bunks, replaying his voice in their minds. Even the ones who pretended they didn't care felt something, tight in their chest, something like curiosity mixed with fear. By the time they gathered in the training hall, everyone had the same question. What exactly happened during that old mission? And why did Ralvik speak about it like the memory still lived inside him? When Ralvik finally entered the hall, his expression was calm, but his eyes were distant, as if he had already stepped back into the past. The instructor paused the morning drills and nodded at him. The recruits formed a half-circle around their commander. Ralvik didn't waste any time. "You asked what happened on Earth," he began quietly. "You want the story? Then I will tell it from the beginning." He let out a slow breath, almost as if preparing himself to relive it. "It started as the simplest mission I had ever been assigned." The recruits leaned in, eager and nervous. Ralvik continued. "Our squad received orders to travel to a remote mountain region on Earth. There were old satellite reports showing strange energy readings. Nothing dangerous, just unusual. Most likely human equipment malfunctioning. At least, that's what we thought." He paused, remembering the first sight of the world. We landed near dusk. The sky was turning orange, and the air was colder than we expected. The mountains looked like giant teeth rising out of the ground. I had seen many planets before, but Earth felt different. It felt ancient, like the world had been watching everything for a very long time. One of the recruits whispered, "I didn't think humans lived anywhere dangerous." Ralvik shook his head slightly. "Everything on Earth is dangerous in its own way. The storms, the animals, the terrain. Even the silence in those mountains felt heavy." He continued, "We moved through thick forests and rocky paths, scanning for energy. Signals. The readings grew stronger as we climbed higher, but we found nothing, no machines, No human camps, nothing that could explain the energy. Ralvik's voice shifted, becoming slower and more careful. That night, the storm arrived. The recruits straightened unconsciously. The winds came first, Ralvik said. They were so strong they nearly pushed us off the narrow path. Then the rain started sharp, cold, falling sideways. We needed shelter fast. Our scanners showed a cave nearby, so we headed toward it. He closed his eyes for a moment, reliving the memory. I remember the sound. The rain struck the rocks like thousands of tiny metal pieces. My squad was tired, cold, and annoyed. We complained about human weather the entire way. A few recruits exchanged small smiles, imagining it easily. Ralvik continued. The cave entrance was wide and dark. At first, it felt like a relief to get out of the storm. But the deeper we went, the stranger things became. He lifted a hand. Slightly, as if showing them the cave's walls, we found markings, carvings, drawings made by humans thousands of years ago. At first, we thought they were just simple artwork from people who lived long before modern humans. But the more we studied them, the more confusing they became. The tall recruit asked quietly, "What was confusing?" Ralvik answered, "These ancient drawings showed scenes that looked impossible. Humans fighting creatures that didn't match anything we knew. Mountains glowing with light. And worst of all, figures standing beside humans that didn't look human at all." The recruits grew still. One whispered, "Like aliens?" Ralvik shook his head slowly. "No, nothing like us. Nothing like any species we know. They looked unreal. One figure was drawn as if made of pure light. Another had long shadows that didn't match the direction of the cave's natural light. When we touched the carvings, the stone felt warm, even though the air was cold." The recruits exchanged nervous glances. Ralvik said, "My squad joked at first. They called it ancient human imagination. They laughed at the art. I laughed too. None of us took it seriously." He paused again. Then we found the chamber. The air in the hall felt heavier now. Ralvik spoke carefully, as if choosing each word with intention. The cave opened into a large chamber. The walls were covered top to bottom with old drawings. In the center was a raised stone platform. On top of it, we found something unexpected. He looked at the recruits one by one. A wooden staff. The tall recruit frowned. "Like a stick?" Ralvik nodded. "Yes, simple, old, dry. But when our equipment scanned it, the readings went wild. The staff held an energy signature that didn't match any known human material. It pulsed, faint but steady, like a heartbeat." The recruit's eyes widened. "We tried to lift it," Ralvik continued, "but none of us could. Not because it was heavy, because something stopped us. It felt like a barrier, like the air around the staff became thicker when we reached out." The youngest recruit whispered, "That sounds impossible." Ralvik gave a slow, quiet reply. "That's what I thought too." He continued speaking, his voice softer. As we examined the staff, we didn't notice that the storm outside had grown stronger. The wind howled through the cave entrance. The temperature dropped. The air felt like it was tightening around. U.S. He looked down at his hands unconsciously, as if feeling the cold again. Then someone stepped into the chamber. The recruits froze in place. "At first, we didn't see him clearly," Ralvik said. "The shadows were long. The rain echoed through the tunnels. But slowly, a shape appeared near the entrance of the chamber." His voice grew deeper. It was a human. The tall recruit blinked. "A human? Just walking around in a storm? Inside a mountain?" Ralvik nodded. "Yes, but not like the humans we studied." He looked calm. He looked like the storm didn't matter. His clothes were old simple cloth, worn at the edges and he carried nothing except another wooden staff. A recruit gasped softly. Ralvik continued. We pointed our weapons at him. It was protocol, but he didn't react. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't step back. He just walked toward us slowly, like he had been expecting us. The room felt like it wasn't breathing. When he reached the platform, Ralvik said, something strange happened. The markings on this walls, those old drawings, seemed to brighten for a moment, as if light passed over them. The recruits shifted, unsettled. The air pulsed. My ears rang. And then his staff glowed, just for a moment soft, warm, like sunlight. Ralvik's voice lowered even more. And in that moment, every piece of equipment we had shut down. Our helmets, our weapons, our scanners, everything. The tall recruit's eyes widened. Commander, humans don't have that kind of technology. Ralvik agreed quietly. I know. Another recruit whispered, Did he say anything? Ralvik nodded slowly. Yes, he spoke. But not in any human language we had studied. Not in any language I've heard since. Yet somehow we understood him. The room went silent. What did he say? One recruit asked, barely above a whisper. Ralvik answered with a calm, heavy voice. He told us we were standing in a place that should not be. Disturbed. The recruits' hearts pounded. Ralvik continued. Before any of us could speak, he lifted his staff slightly. Not as a threat, but as a warning. Then the light around him faded, and he was gone. The tall recruit stared. Gone? How? Did he run? Ralvik shook his head slowly. No, he disappeared. Like mist fading into the air. A deep silence settled. Ralvik finished quietly. That was the moment I realized human myths are not just stories. Some of them are memories. He looked at his recruits with steady eyes. And that was the day I stopped laughing. The hall remained silent long after he finished speaking. Not one soldier moved. Not one soldier breathed too loudly. Because in their hearts, they knew one thing. Commander Ralvik had not been telling a story. He had been remembering something that never left him. The days that followed were strange for everyone on the ship. The alien soldiers pretended that nothing serious had happened, but their eyes told a different story. They acted normal on the outside, but inside, something had shaken them. They no longer laughed loudly in the hallways while talking about humans. They still joked, but their jokes now felt weaker, as if they were trying to convince themselves that everything was fine. On the human side, there was a quiet tension too. The small human teens stayed close together, talking in soft voices. They kept checking the corridors, as if expecting someone to jump out and ask them more uncomfortable questions. The mood had changed, even if no one wanted to admit it. Perrin, the young alien soldier who had shocked everyone with his confession, tried to slip back into his routine, but it wasn't easy. Everywhere he went, he saw someone watching him, waiting for him to say something else, new detail that could help them understand what he had meant when he said he had seen something. It wasn't just simple curiosity. It was fear mixed with fascination. He felt like he had opened a door that wasn't meant to be opened, and now everyone was afraid of what might come out. But Aaron didn't regret talking. In fact, a part of him felt relieved. He had kept that secret buried inside him for years, and speaking it out loud, especially in front of humans, had felt like finally releasing a breath he had been holding for too long. Still, he didn't fully understand why the humans reacted the way they did. He had expected disbelief, or maybe laughter. But instead, they had looked at him with a strange kind of respect, as if his words carried weight. It was as if humans were already prepared to accept things that scared other species. That one human in particular kept replaying that moment in his head. He was older than the others, quiet and observant. Since the incident, he had been watching Aaron. carefully, though not in a hostile way. It was more like he recognized something in him, some fear, some truth. One afternoon, when the ship was silent and most soldiers were resting, the older human approached Aaron in the observation deck. Aaron didn't notice him at first. He was standing near the glass wall, staring at the stars with a heavy expression. The human cleared his throat softly, and Aaron turned his head. There was a long pause before the human spoke. "I think," he said slowly, "you've been carrying that story for a long time." Aaron didn't move. He didn't even blink for a few seconds. Then he gave a small, tired nod. "Longer than I should have," he murmured. The human nodded, as if he understood. "Sometimes the things we see stay inside us, even when we try to." "Forget them." Aaron studied him. "You say that as if you've seen something too." The man didn't answer right away. He simply gave Aaron a calm, steady look. "Everyone has something," he said. "But yours seems different." Aaron turned his eyes back to the stars. "It was supposed to be impossible. Our training said that humans were unpredictable, emotional, noisy, chaotic, but not dangerous. Not in a way that could scare us." "But something did scare you," the man said gently. Aaron inhaled slowly. For a moment, it looked like he might walk away, but he stayed. "I wasn't supposed to be on that planet," he said. "It wasn't even part of my assignment. I was there by accident, or maybe fate. I still don't know." The human didn't interrupt him. He simply waited, silently encouraging Aaron to continue. Aaron's voice softened as memories resurfaced. "It was a research mission. Our scanners picked up strange energy signals from an abandoned colony. The place looked ruined from space broken. Buildings, no movement, nothing alive. But our sensors detected something underneath the rubble. Not metal, not machinery. Something else." He swallowed hard. "My squad went down to investigate. Everything felt wrong the moment we landed. The air was too still. The shadows looked thicker than they should. Even our communication devices kept glitching." The human listened with complete focus, sensing that Aaron was finally telling the real story. "We split into two groups," Aaron continued. "I stayed with the lead team and went inside the building with the strongest energy readings. It was dark, but not the normal kind of dark. It felt alive, like it was waiting for you." He paused, then whispered, "That's where we found it." The man leaned slightly closer. "Found what?" Aaron closed his eyes, as if trying to forget a memory that refused to fade. "A human," he said softly. "But not like the humans we know. This one wasn't scared, or lost, or hurt. He was standing there, as if he had been waiting for us." The man frowned gently. "A survivor?" Aaron shook his head. "No, he couldn't have been. There were no life signs before we entered. The scanners picked up nothing. But when we stepped inside the room, he was just there." His voice broke slightly, and he wasn't normal. He looked normal, but everything around him was wrong. The shadows bent towards him. The air vibrated. And when he looked at us, it felt like he could see through every one of us at once. A quiet shiver ran through him. My squad panicked. One of them tried to raise their weapon, but before he could even pull the trigger, something happened. The human whispered, "What?" Aaron stared at the glass wall again, eyes distant. The whole room changed. It felt like gravity reversed for a moment. Some of us fell upward, some sideways. The walls distorted, and the human just kept staring, not moving, not speaking. The older man's face grew more serious. Aaron continued. Then he finally spoke. "One sentence," the human asked softly. "What did he say?" Aaron turned to him with an expression full of fear he had hidden for years. "He said, 'You shouldn't have come.'" The silence that followed felt heavy. Aaron's hands trembled slightly as he clenched them. "We ran. All of us. Even our commander. We didn't look back. When we escaped the building, everything behind us collapsed, and when we returned to our ship, the energy readings were gone. The building was just rubble again, and that human disappeared. The older man stayed quiet, absorbing the story. Aaron spoke again, but this time with a deeper fear. When we reported it, the officers told us we misread the data, that the building was unstable and caused hallucinations. They said stress made us imagine things. They ordered us never to speak of it again, but we all knew what we saw. He looked directly at the man, and the worst part, the human's face. It wasn't angry. It wasn't scared. It looked disappointed. The man felt a cold heaviness settle in his chest. You think he was something more than human? Aaron nodded slowly. I know he was. The older human didn't try to argue. Instead, he said, maybe humans have more sides than we know. Some things we don't understand yet. Aaron breathed deeply, relieved that someone finally believed. Him. When I saw the humans on this ship laughing and talking, I kept thinking about that one. About the way he stood there, the way the shadows moved. I thought maybe all humans had that inside them. The man smiled gently. We don't, but some things about us, even we don't fully understand. Aaron gave a small, tired laugh. Your species is terrifying. The man chuckled softly. Most of us are just trying to survive, same as you. For the first time in days, Aaron looked calm, as if sharing the story had finally lifted a weight he had carried too long. But the quiet moment didn't last long. A soft alarm echoed through the ship, calling both humans and aliens to the briefing hall. Something important was happening. Something unexpected. The man placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. Let's go, he said. Whatever this is, we face it together. Aaron nodded. Yes, together. They walked out side by side. Neither of them knew that what waited for them in the briefing hall would change everything again. Something was coming, something that would connect Aaron's past to humanity's future and force every soldier on board to question what they believed about humans and about themselves. The moment Aaron and the older human stepped into the briefing hall, they could feel the tension in the air. Normally, announcements on the ship were calm and routine, but today, every alien soldier stood stiff, their expressions tight. Even the humans who usually kept to themselves were whispering anxiously. Something had changed, and everyone could sense it. The commander of the alien battalion stood at the front, hands behind his back, face hard and unreadable. A large screen behind him flickered with strange symbols and lines of data. Nothing on it made sense to most people, but the mood in the room made it clear that it was serious. When the room finally went quiet, the commander began speaking in a firm voice. An unknown vessel has been detected near this sector, he said. It appeared suddenly. No warp trail, no approach signal, no communication. It is unlike anything we have seen before. A wave of murmurs spread through the soldiers. Aaron felt a sharp chill run down his spine. He didn't know why, but something about the commander's tone made him uneasy. The older human standing beside him noticed the tension in his posture. The commander pointed at the screen, which now displayed the outline of a ship. The shape was unfamiliar, long, curving, almost organic. It didn't resemble human design, nor alien design. It was something entirely different. It is silent, the commander continued. No weapons active, no signals, no movement. But it is not a derelict vessel. Our sensors detect faint energy coming from within. A younger alien raised his hand. Could it be an abandoned ship? Maybe lost? The commander shook his head. No, the energy pattern inside matches something we have only encountered once. Before. Aaron felt his breath catch. He already sensed what was coming. And when the commander revealed it, the room fell into complete silence. The energy signature matches the readings. He paused, as if even saying it made him uneasy. From the human colony incident reported years ago. Aaron's chest tightened so fast he felt dizzy. He heard a soft gasp from the humans nearby. The older man beside him slowly lowered his eyes. Understanding immediately what that meant, the commander continued. The incident was dismissed as a sensor error. But this new reading is identical, and it is approaching us. Aaron felt the room tilt slightly. For years, he had doubted himself. His superiors told him he imagined it. His squad mates refused to speak of it again. But now, this proved he hadn't been wrong. Something real had happened. Something that shouldn't exist. The commander scanned the crowd. We will approach the vessel cautiously. A mixed team will join me in the docking bay. Humans will also be included in this mission, as the vessel may be connected to their species. The humans in the room exchanged confused, worried looks. They didn't know what to make of it. They had never even heard Aaron's story. They had no idea what kind of energy reading had been suppressed all these years. The mission list flashed on the screen, and when the names appeared, Aaron felt his stomach drop. His name was included, and so was the older humans. The two shared a look. No words were needed. The connection between Aaron's past and whatever was coming now was too strong to ignore Dot as the crowd broke apart. Preparing for the mission, Aaron felt like he was walking through fog. His mind was racing, replaying every moment from that day, his squad running, the collapsing walls, the human who stared at them like he had been waiting. The older human walked beside him quietly until they reached the preparation area. Only then did he place a hand on Aaron's shoulder. "You think it's the same?" the man asked softly. Aaron nodded slowly. "The energy feels the same. I can't explain it. It's not something you forget." The man took a deep breath. "Then you're more prepared than the rest of us." Aaron let out a faint, humorless laugh. "I don't feel prepared." Together, they suited up, checked equipment, and joined the team heading to the docking bay. The atmosphere was heavy. Even the most experienced soldiers looked on edge. The docking bay lights dimmed as the mysterious vessel slowly drew into view. It didn't move like a normal ship. It drifted, as if floating on invisible water. The closer it came, the colder. The air felt. For a moment, no one spoke. No one dared to. Aaron stared at the vessel with wide eyes. He didn't recognize the design, but the feeling in his chest was the same one he felt in that building years ago. A feeling of wrongness. A feeling of being watched. The older human stepped forward slightly. "It doesn't look abandoned," he whispered. Ian agreed. The ship felt alive in a quiet, unsettling way. The commander ordered them to move into formation. "We will board through the side entrance," he said. "Weapons low, no sudden actions. We do not provoke unless necessary." The door to the alien ship opened with a soft hiss, releasing a faint mist. The entrance was dark, lit by small glowing lines along the walls that pulsed like breathing. One by one, the team stepped inside. The atmosphere inside the vessel was even stranger. The walls were smooth and warm, as if they were made of living material. The air was thick and heavy, yet it didn't feel dangerous. It felt expectant. As the group walked deeper into the corridor, the lights along the walls brightened, reacting to their presence. The older human whispered, "This place feels like it's watching us." Aaron swallowed hard. That's exactly how it felt back then. The commander raised a hand, signaling them to stop. At the end of the hallway was a door with faint symbols carved into it. Symbols no one recognized, not even the humans. Wow. The commander studied them. Aaron felt a strange pressure pressing gently at the back of his mind, like a whisper trying to reach him. He stepped back instinctively. "You okay?" The older human asked quietly. Aaron nodded, but he was lying. He could feel something old, something familiar, something that should not be here. The commander finally activated the door. It slid open silently. Inside the room was nothing but a single platform in the center. And on that platform, a faint human silhouette, but not physical, not solid. It flickered like a projection, yet had weight, presence, and an unnerving stillness. Everyone froze. The older human took a careful step back, his breath unsteady. Even the commander didn't know what to say. The hologram, or whatever it was, did not move. But its face slowly turned toward the group. Aaron felt the same cold rush from years ago sweep through him. The silhouette spoke in a calm, quiet voice that filled the room without echoing. "You came again." Aaron staggered back. The voice was unmistakable. It was the same voice from the ruined colony building. The same voice that warned them. The older human looked sharply at Aaron. "This is him?" Aaron's throat tightened. "Yes." The figure continued. "You were not ready then. You are not ready now. But time has forced our paths to cross once more." The commander stepped forward, trying to steady his voice. "Identify yourself. What are you?" The figure didn't answer directly. Instead, it looked at the humans in the group, especially the older human. "You have forgotten what sleeps within your kind," it said softly. But the galaxy has not. No one understood the meaning, but they all felt the weight behind the words. The figure turned its attention to Aaron next. "You remember," it said, "and that is why you fear." Aaron's breathing quickened. The room felt too small, too warm, too alive. "What do you want?" Aaron finally managed to whisper. The figure's voice became quieter. "To warn you?" The commander asked. "Warn? You? As of what?" The silhouette flickered slightly, as if struggling to maintain form. "They are waking," it whispered. "And when they rise, you will need the humans more than ever." The room felt suddenly colder. No one knew who they were. No one wanted to ask. The silhouette's voice weakened further. "Prepare yourselves, and remember what you saw." Then the figure vanished. The lights dimmed. The energy readings dropped to zero. The ship around them went silent. And slowly, unnaturally, vessel began to shut down, as if it had delivered its message and no longer had purpose. The commander quickly ordered everyone out. No one argued. They rushed back through the hallways, hearts pounding. As soon as Aaron and the older human stepped back onto their own ship, the docking clamps released automatically, even though no one activated them. The alien vessel drifted away, losing power, until it was nothing more than cold metal floating in space. Back in the docking bay, the team stood in complete shock. Aaron felt his legs trembling. He sat down on a cargo crate, breathing deeply. The older human sat beside him. "We're in something much bigger than we thought," the man said. Aaron nodded slowly. "And I don't think the warning was just for us. I think it was for the entire galaxy." The older man looked at him with a calm but serious expression. "Then, whatever happens next, we face it together." Aaron didn't answer right away. He stared at the empty space outside the window, where the strange vessel had disappeared. He felt something shifting inside him, a mix of fear, responsibility, and a warning he could no longer ignore. And he knew one thing for certain. The real story was only beginning. The hours after the mysterious vessel drifted away were some of the quietest the ship had ever experienced. No one talked loudly. No one made jokes. Even the sound of footsteps seemed softer somehow, as if everyone was trying not to disturb something fragile around them. Word of the strange message spread quickly, even though the commander had ordered the team not to discuss it yet. But silence never stayed solid for long on a ship full of worried soldiers. Rumors began to swirl, some wild, some scared, some strangely hopeful. Despite all the whispers, one thing was clear. What they had heard inside that ship was not just a message. It was a warning, and not the kind that could be ignored. Rin walked through the corridors with his thoughts spinning. Everything he had tried to bury for years was now standing in front of him again. The memory he hoped would fade had instead grown stronger. And now the whole ship felt the weight of something none of them could name. He kept thinking about the figure, about the way it looked at him, about the words, "You remember, and that is why you fear." He didn't know what scared him more, the memory itself, or the idea that something bigger was waiting in the dark. The older human who had stood next to him in the briefing earlier found him sitting alone in the observation deck. Rin didn't hear him come in. He was too lost in thought, staring into the star-filled darkness. The man quietly sat beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. They just watched the stars drift past the window. Finally, the man broke the silence. "You look exhausted." Rin gave a small, humorless smile. "I feel like I'm carrying a whole planet on my shoulders." The man nodded slowly. "Sometimes truth does that?" Rin turned to him. "Do you think it was real?" The man looked back at the stars before answering. "Everything we saw was real. Whatever that figure was, whatever it meant, it wasn't lying. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a final warning." Rin let out a slow breath. "It said something. Is waking. Something we'll need humans for." The older human folded his hands. "That's what I've been thinking about too. And there's something strange. The figure didn't seem surprised by our presence. It seemed like it expected us, especially the humans." Rin nodded. "Like it knew something about your species that we don't." The man didn't deny it. "Maybe humans have a history we've forgotten. Or maybe it's something inside us that even we don't fully understand." Rin studied him. "Doesn't that scare you?" The man shrugged lightly. "Everything scares me these days. But fear isn't always bad. Sometimes fear tells you where to look." Rin found comfort in his calmness, even if he didn't understand how the man stayed so steady. He felt like he himself was standing on the edge of something too big to imagine. The door to the observation deck slid open again. This time, it was the commander. His expression was firm, but not harsh. When he saw the two of them sitting there, he approached quietly. "We have called for a meeting," the commander said. "Both humans and our soldiers. The message from a vessel cannot be kept secret. We must discuss what it means." Rin stood up. The older human rose beside him. "We're ready," the man said. "Good," the commander replied. "Because this concerns all of us." When they entered the central hall, nearly the whole ship was present. Humans stood together on one side, aliens on the other, but the distance between them felt smaller than ever. Something about the warning had tied them together in a way nothing else had. The commander spoke first, repeating the details of the vessel, the energy readings, and the mysterious message. People listened with full focus, no interruptions, no doubtful comments. Even those who usually laughed at strange ideas were silent. Then the commander said something no one expected. "Rin," he called, "please come forward." Rin froze. For a second, the older human gave him a small nod, telling him to go. Rin slowly stepped toward the center of the room. The commander, years ago, Rin witnessed something that was dismissed, but today's events match his experience perfectly. He is the only one here who has faced this before. Rin felt dozens of eyes on him. He swallowed hard. Speaking in front of people wasn't easy, but now everyone needed the truth. He told the human who appeared when no sensors detected him. He spoke slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. And this time, no one doubted him. The hall was so quiet that the commander addressed the room again. "Whatever Rin saw then, and whatever we saw today, is connected, and it is connected to humans. A human scientist raised her hand. The figure said something is waking. We don't, the commander answered truthfully. But if something powerful is rising and we need humans, we cannot afford distrust between our species anymore. Another alien soldier spoke. But why humans? They're normal. Not stronger than us. Not faster. Not... The older human in the front interrupted gently. Not everything is seen on the surface. The soldier fell silent. Then the oldest, alien general, stepped forward. He rarely spoke unless the matter was extremely serious.